All right, so meal prepping.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna meal prep. When does the week start for you? This led to a very spirited debate in my house.
3, 2, 1.
Sunday.
Monday.
Explain.
Welcome to Young and Adulting, a podcast of the young adults community at Christ Fellowship Church. Our hope is to create a safe place for authentic conversation around the ins and outs of life as we all try to navigate following Jesus in the world we live in today. Thanks for joining us and welcome to the conversation.
All right, so who meal preps? Like, Tyler, do you meal prep? Casey, do you meal prep? I do not meal prep anymore.
I also don't anymore. I went through a long time of ferociously meal prepping, and now I'm like, leftovers kind of freak me out.
Half the time we have like dinner and Tara's like, do you want the leftover for lunch? I'm like, oh yeah, thanks.
But you're
That's
not like,
kind of the extent.
but it's not ever like a,
No, not for
Yeah.
the week. No, I'm usually like, I have these lunch connects, so I probably need to get something here on these days. And sometimes I forget to eat lunch altogether.
Yeah, my extent of meal prep is like dinner the night before, leftover for lunch the next day.
all right, so two hypothetical questions since
I
none
love
of
a
us meal prep.
hypothetical.
None of us. If you were to pick, we are each going to have a draft.
A draft of what? Like
Of-
it's drafty in here?
Yes. Of our fruit prepping.
Okay.
If you're meal
Fruit?
prepping.
Okay.
If you're meal prepping.
Of all
fruit.
things.
What are the you go through your top 3 at the point that someone drafts a fruit, it's no longer part of your meal prep plan. So Casey is the lady. Hit us first. Top 3.
So do I start at 3 or do I start at my
Number
top
1,
pick?
your
Okay,
top
this
pick.
is like okay.
Your top pick.
Raspberries.
Oh, watermelon for sure.
Ooh, orange.
Oh, you're okay.
Oh yeah, I'll participate in case that wasn't clear.
Apples.
Strawberries.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I don't eat healthy things, and the only 2 on my list are oranges and apples.
Okay.
But now
Too bad.
But now I don't have a number 2.
Wait, I thought we were going on the number 1, number 2, number 3.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I have 2 fruits that I eat: oranges and apples.
I don't need a lot of fruit.
And Casey has taken apples.
Unfortunate.
Oh, okay. I understand now.
Blueberries.
What other fruits are there? Pineapple.
Banana.
That was so fast.
I used to eat a lot of them during soccer season. So.
Blackberries. That's the only other berry I could think of, mostly because that's what my kids have. All right, so meal prepping.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna meal prep. When does the week start for you? This led to a very spirited debate in my house.
3, 2, 1.
Sunday.
Monday.
Explain.
Okay, so the way my calendar is set up,
Yeah.
it's set up Sunday through Saturday. But the way my wife's calendar is set up, and I get it, it makes sense, is Monday through Sunday. Because my work week starts on Sunday.
Agree. Oh, wait. No, I disagree.
I have my week start on Sunday. But when I went we have like a paper calendar at my house to fill out because didn't do the greatest job. And this is just a healthy practice. I didn't do the greatest job at like communicating.
Calendar invites.
Yeah. And just telling my wife, hey, I have this thing this night. And most of the time what would happen is I'd get to the day before and I'm like, hey, I have to be out tomorrow. And she's like,
yeah, I've been there.
So anyway, we go to fill out the calendar and I filled it out like looking at my phone, but because my phone is set up on Sunday, not Monday, I wrote everything wrong off a day. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. It was a fun conversation. if I'm being
Incorrect.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
I don't know. I thought Casey was going to take it. I'm gonna be really
Oh,
honest.
okay. I got it. Okay. Guys, we're getting real practical on this season. we're talking about things like how to wake up earlier.
Yeah.
Really, that's code for how to get your life together. These are questions we're all asking, all trying to figure out how to create discipline. Ooh, not the funnest thing in the world, but something we all need. I feel like a lot of us want to get better at that.
For sure.
But I do have a confession to make. When it came time to prepare for this episode, Joel, I don't know about you, but Tyler and I approached with very different preparation methods. So Tyler prepared by saying, I gotta be ready for what we're about to talk about. He went to bed early last night. He got up early this morning. I, in fact,
Did neither of the two.
was not successful at that method of preparation. I did, in fact, go to bed early last night. I set myself up for success, but I don't know what happened. I woke up, saw what time it was, and I just went back to bed. I snoozed.
Till when?
7:30.
That's not terrible.
That's pushing it for me. That's pushing it. So we did not prepare in the same way for this episode, but now I feel like it gives me justification to have a seat at the table because I can bring another perspective.
Probably
I'm a
unpopular.
participant.
Probably unpopular opinion in practice, but I don't use a sound on my alarm.
What do you use?
Just the vibrate.
Oh,
I know.
why?
No.
I'm married, share a room with my wife,
Mhm.
and so it's got to be like one of two things to wake me up. Either I've got to have like the vibration, or typically what I used to do was I had an alarm clock that I had to like solve a math problem or like shake my phone like 30 times to get up, so which she found very annoying. So I just had to learn how to get up
I could understand.
Once
on
and
the-
done.
on the minimum. On the other hand, her alarm clock is max volume all the way.
Necessary. Yep. But this is what we're talking about today. We're trying to get better at this. So Tyler, can you help us?
How to get up earlier. Well, Casey, I love your honesty. And if I'm honest, I like last week, I definitely got up at 7:30. So I'm not where I was. I'm not where I was yesterday. But yeah, let's talk about how to get up earlier, which I love this question because I think a lot of us approach this question and we hear people ask this question and you go on YouTube and everybody talks about it. There's this like desire to get up earlier because we feel like we never have enough time to do all the stuff we want to do, always be interrupted. We can't finish all the stuff, finish all our tasks. And so there's just like, I got to get up earlier because you fill in the blank. We all have this thing. And I was thinking about this topic today as we prepare for this. And I thought of that verse in Psalm 90. It says, so teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And I think we could say it like this, help us to count our days and make our days count. So I think we all want to make sure that where our time is going is valuable. And so let's talk about how to get up earlier. I'm not the expert by any means. I don't think any of us are the experts, but I do think it's a helpful conversation no matter what stage and space you're in. I became particularly passionate about this. I don't know when you guys started thinking about like, man, I feel like I need to get up earlier in my life. Typically there's something that happens out of the ordinary in your life. It changes things up. For me, it was when my son Judah was born. I found myself, after he was sleeping through the nights, I just got used to like being sleepless and tired all the time. And so I would sleep in till even like at 7:30 when your work day starts at 9. It's kind of sleeping in at 7:30, 8 max. It's like feeling like sleeping in. And I found myself in a space where I was sleeping in every day till that time. And he would be the first thing that would wake me up and it would drive me nuts. I was like, oh, it was worse than an alarm because an alarm you can snooze and be like, no, and so he would wake up and I'd frustrated because now my day started and I'm needed and I didn't get to this, now at work and now I'm frantic. And I didn't like the kind of person I really was. I didn't like that my first thoughts toward my son were that. And so I just had this idea of like, I need to become more disciplined and I don't know how and I don't know any change, but I need to get up earlier so that when I hear his voice, I'm like, oh, my son's awake.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to embrace the day.
Great.
And so that was kind of the time where I'm like, I need to start forming some new habits. But love you guys to share. When you think about like sleeping in, like why do you sleep in? Like why do you think we love sleeping in so much?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. It's so comfortable.
Yeah.
It's it's similar in the season. Is Judah at a point where is he still like in a crib?
Yeah. I don't know how he hasn't climbed out. He totally could. He just hasn't. So
Okay, so Jordan, my oldest is 3 going on 4 in just a couple of months. And I think from like the 18 months or so, I mean, definitely before that, but like she knew she could climb out of her crib but never did. But until we moved into our new house a couple months ago, we didn't like free them. So like either a month in or like 2 weeks and we freed them from their cribs, and they always like stayed in their rooms. But in the past like month or so, they've learned I can venture out into the house.
Access.
Yeah, and they've taken full advantage.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, like maybe last week at like 3 a.m., my daughter got up. She went to the playroom for like 5 minutes, and then she decided to wake up her baby brother, who is 4 months, and she freed him from his swaddle.
Oh man.
And went to pick him up, to which at 3 a.m. I go running in and I'm like, no, go to bed. To which for some reason she ran to my bed. Like she thought I meant my bed. So kids is definitely like the reason I keep getting up early.
True.
But back in like 2019, maybe 2018, I don't remember. But I made a decision like for like health and fitness, like if I wanted to have like my own like personal time, because I've been married, it'll be 8 years next year.
Let's go.
Wow.
If I wanted my own personal time, like it needed to be before my wife got up. And so that was like the event of like my time after work is spent with my wife. So that means my time, if it's going to be personal, it's got to be before she wakes up.
Yep.
So it was like 5 a.m. workouts. Here I was.
But the bed's so comfy.
So comfortable.
What do you think,
So
Casey, for
comfortable.
you?
Why to sleep in?
Yeah, like, or, you know, what keeps us there?
I'm tired. I think sometimes I can be like the best salesman in the world if you talk to me when I'm like waking up in the morning. Like I can talk myself out of anything. When my alarm's going off in the morning, like it's fine. You can sleep 15 more minutes.
right,
It's gonna
absolutely.
be
I
can.
fine. Even
If I
if you
don't
get
wash
up
my
at
hair.
this time, you still have that much time to do this thing. And I'm just the most persuasive person in the morning.
He's proud of me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be fine. And then I get up and I regret it all.
Right.
But in the moment, I just feel great
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I think it's so easy when we talk about that because we all want what's comfy, what's convenient, what's cozy, and honestly, that's like all of our defaults. Like all people is like the easy road, and so I found myself when like 2 years ago, really frustrated with the version of the life I wanted and I thought I could see, but like the choices that I was making. You know, it's like morning Tyler hated evening Tyler because I love staying up late and sleeping in, but I sleep in and I'm like, why didn't I go to bed earlier so I could get up? And I just got back and forth with this problem. And so I found out like I need to change. I need to look into like habit formation more, and I need to figure out how to get up earlier. And I was listening to a podcast by Pastor Chad Veach, the leadership lean-in that he does. And he was talking about, this was early this previous year in 2022. He was talking about the power of like self-denial and how we need more self-denial in our life. You know, he was particularly talking about like the benefits of even fasting, of like telling yourself like, no, I want that, but I'm going to refrain from that. It actually like builds confidence rather than indulgence. And he said, you never feel more confident than when you're in a season of like self-denial. So like what self-denial does. So I think if we're going to talk about getting up earlier, we have to acknowledge that it's going to require some like denying of self, because we're going to have to deny that part of us that's like, oh no, but let's sleep in, and you know, we've had a hard, whatever it is, and lean into just being uncomfortable a little bit, because that's really going to help us. So I think it starts with realizing that all people are not disciplined, and it can get really discouraging when you see like the most fit people, most disciplined people. You're like, oh, you just like wake up and breathe discipline. Like you're just like, you ooze discipline. Was listening to a podcast by Pastor Craig Rochelle. He was like saying like, no, I'm not a naturally disciplined person. None of us are.
Yeah.
So wherever we're on the spectrum of like feeling really undisciplined, unorganized in my life, all of us can grow in this area by making some decisions. And so just to take the pressure off of anyone who's listening and they're not in the space they want to be, it's good news. We can take strides towards becoming more disciplined and growing in this area. And so I think we talk about self-control, which is, it's a fruit of the Spirit. Like, and this is an aspect, you know, like Paul talks about all kinds of self-control. And this is a big area, whether it's like food choices, like, which for me, you know, like is difficult. And when you look at habits, like there's the negative and there's the positive. And so we'll talk a little bit about habits. But for those who are listening, 2 books that are really helpful. They're not Christian necessarily books, but they're really helpful on habit formation and routines is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And then another one, I didn't read this book, but I listened to a podcast, Carey Newhouse podcast. He had Charles Duhigg. He wrote the book, The Power of Habits, and they talk about really the science behind them. And so when we look at defining and moving towards building new habits in our life, it's really helpful to understand how they happen, because a lot of us, we have all these habits and routines, we don't even know why we do what we do. And so it's really helpful to kind of break them down. And Casey, we were talking about this a little bit before, but typically habit happens by there's a cue, there's a trigger, something like, for me, let's just break this down. I see a pizza, I smell a pizza, there's my cue, there's my trigger that more often than not will lead me to get the pizza, because that's what naturally happens, because I know a reward is on their side because the pizza tastes really good. So like that's the bad loop with food. It's like, oh, I see it or I smell it, which leads me to take it because I know that the taste or the reward is coming. Yeah. And so that works negatively with all kinds of toxic things, but that works on the inverse side as well of positive habits. And so as we talk about routines, and really this conversation of like how to get up earlier, it probably works differently for a lot of people. And so we'd love you guys to chime in if one of these hits a nerve. But let's talk about some handles for maybe actually how to get up earlier. Things that are really helpful for me when I was like, I don't sleep at all, and my kid gets up at
3 a.m.
Yeah, whatever.
5 a.m. 5:30.
Kind of what you're saying. If there are really things that are important, we all prioritize. We make time for what we actually prioritize. And so if we're not making time for something, I think the question is like, do I really prioritize this? You know,
Totally.
Because we can make all excuses all day, and I've definitely made them. But some handles for how to actually get up earlier. I love this one. It's really helpful for me. Is start the day before you sleep. Yeah. So if you actually view
what does that mean?
Evenings as the start of the day, because even you look at like the way that the Jewish people grew up, right? The next day actually would start that evening. So if you think about it, you don't actually end your day with sleep, you start your day with sleep. You start your day with rest. So if you think about when you get home from work and you're winding the day down and you're transitioning to like, I'm actually starting the new day and this is how I start the day, it flips it. So a question I ask myself sometimes is, what do I need to do now that will help me be successful when I wake up?
That's great.
Like if the day's starting right now, I'm not like, it's not tomorrow, Tyler, it's like today, Tyler, you know, like decision I make today.
You just changed my entire, I'm thinking through like.
Joel's having a moment.
I really am. If you're like watching this, I am just thinking about the fact that like sleep is the start of the day. And I think of like lack of sleep and how I don't prioritize it. I'm like that I'm intentionally starting my day back. Like if someone told me that they were going to do something harmful, and like lack of sleep, I would say is like harmful for your health, for your, it's reasons why people can't put like all these different things, and thinking through like, that's how I'm choosing to start my day. Like I would never tell someone start your day incorrectly. And like I do that to myself.
Yeah, I love this. I've been bullet journaling recently.
What?
Bullet journaling.
Bullet journal. I thought you said bullet.
Awesome.
Bullet journaling. I think it's a concept that's been around for a while, but only recently I feel like the rise of the really like aesthetically pleasing, like habit tracking bullet journals that are like all over TikTok has been more popular. I'm somewhere in between like your plain straight up bullet journal and like the cool looking ones that you see on TikTok, somewhere in between there. But I've been getting in the habit of doing this. I wouldn't say that I'm the best sleeper either, but I've been getting in the habit of starting my day the night before. So I'll sit down, I'll do on my one side of my bullet journal, everything like the top priorities that I have for the next day, get some things out of the way. One of my favorite things, I don't really like the phrase, but one of my favorite things is brain dumping. So I actually have a page in my bullet journal that's just for like dumping things out of my brain that just need to get out of the way. Because what I find is that if I didn't do that and I went to sit down in the morning when I do wake up early and have some like quiet time, be reading my Bible, be reading a book, or be doing something to, invest in myself in the morning, I would be really distracted with a lot of these things. Like, oh, I know that at 9 o'clock, once my day starts at work, I need to do this, I need to do that. I need to walk the dog, I need to order the dog food, I need to do this. So all of this stuff is floating around in my brain when I'm trying to do things that are actually going to help me have a better day. And so I've learned that just getting that out and like having it on a page and then turning the page and starting the next day is so helpful, and it sets me up for so much success for the next day.
That's so great. And that's definitely a mindset, which we'll talk about. And I was thinking about the sidebar. So think about if God rests on the seventh day.
That's when you said that.
And if the day starts in the evening, the first thing that God determined that humans would do
is rest.
Before they work.
That was what I thought when you said it. And I was like,
and that's why we talk about nothing good happens when you're alone at midnight because you're supposed to be sleeping. Right?
Unless you're Paul and Silas, I guess. But
yeah, I guess. But so when we talk about even like spending time with God when you wake up, if you don't to the end of the day, the end of your workday, you're really going, if the day starts in the evening. Right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother thing. But I think that's helpful. So whatever you need to do now, so like I'll get into what my routine is in a few minutes, but going like in the evening, I've eaten, cleaned up. What do I need to do right now that tomorrow Tyler is going to thank me for doing? Be like, thanks, my man. Like you set me up. So I think that mindset of start the day before you sleep helps. And another tip is like avoid blue light before you go to sleep. Dr. Caroline Leaf talks a lot about this of like avoiding scrolling on social media or even watching TV right before, because you've been processing little blips of information, not deeply at a surface level. And so now we're asking our brain to rest, and it's not used to. So that's helpful. Secondly, I think this was hard for me, is get ready and go to bed. Get ready for bed, and then go to bed earlier than you actually want to. So we're talking about prioritizing rest. I need at least 8 hours. I wish I didn't. I talk to people who are like, oh, I'm good with 5. And I'm like, I don't get it. Maybe.
No.
I need 8. And so I have to, if I want to wake up at this time, my goal is, this morning I got up at 6. I want to get back to waking up at 5 again, but I need to backtrack. So I need to be going to bed at at least 9, which I'm like, that's early. My kid doesn't go to bed till 8. It's like backing up. And I think I also heard Chad Beach talk about this. We can do anything that's like extreme for a season. So it's like if I'm trying to build this new habit or discipline, I can go to bed at 8 if my goal is getting in this rhythm. So I think that's helpful. I had a professor in college. We were in class, and he was talking about his routine. He said he gets up at 4 a.m. and all this college kids are like, "What? How do you do that? Like, that's crazy." 4 a.m. Like, Jesus isn't even up at 4. Like, oh my goodness, all this stuff. And we're like, how do you do this? And he said this thing was mind blowing to me. He said, I sleep in before I go to sleep. I sleep in before I go to sleep. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I just go to bed earlier, so by the time I wake up at 4, I've already slept 8-9 hours. Because we think like 4 a.m. like, well, you're going to bed at like 11, 12, you sleep in 4 hours. So I think the way that we process like going to bed earlier, coming back to that self-denial, I could watch this new show, or I could maybe save it to the weekend. I could do this thing, or I could set myself up because I really want to wake up at 5. I really want to wake up at 6. I really want to wake up at 6:30. I can go to bed at 9, that leaning into that self-denial.
Yeah,
So,
I love this. I have a quick thing on this too, because Pastor Craig Rochelle is one of the people I go to for content around this kind of thing too. And something that he was talking about recently, like you said earlier, just this concept of like discipline isn't natural. You have to choose it. And he talks about focus when it comes to discipline. You have to have a vision, and then you have to focus in on that vision. So it's like, my goal is to start waking up every morning at 5 a.m. That's my vision. How do I focus in on it? And he suggests shifting your focus from your outputs, your goals, like what you want to happen, i.e. waking up at 5 a.m., to focusing on your inputs. So I'm not going to focus every day on, I'm going to get up at 5, I'm going to get up at 5. That's fine. You're probably not going to get up at 5 if you don't focus on the fact that you need to go to bed at 9 or get in bed by 8:30 or whatever. So I found that to be helpful for me in seasons that I'm doing a good job at this, focusing on the inputs. What am I going to put in to achieving this goal rather than just going, I'm going to work out every day. Okay, well, what are you going to do every day to achieve that goal?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Craig Rochelle's the man.
Can't take credit, but.
Yeah. So I would say this is another one that's helped me, is use an alarm clock system that works for you. I'm a big proponent of alarm clocks instead of phones for a few reasons. I got rid of my phone out of my bedroom about 2 years ago, and it was the game changer for me because there's no social media in my bedroom. there was nothing else.
Great.
And so I also found that alarm clocks that are out there can be super helpful. Like I have one, I think I wrote it down here, wake up sunrise alarm clock. It actually, it looks like a little sun, and it starts to light up slowly, like 10 minutes before my alarm comes off. So sometimes I'll wake up and it's like 5 till, and I'm like, yo, I'm awake before the alarm clock. That's dope. And then just kind of slowly wake up. So I think using a system that helps for you, was talking to Lewis before. He's like, I put my phone on my dresser across the room, so I got to get it. Like whatever works for you, I think is helpful, because you got to wake up sometimes. I had a friend in college who like refused to use anything. He's like, I have an internal system. I just wake up. And
Did it work?
That's
it's like
amazing.
Seinfeld episode. Kramer claims to have like this. Like, yeah, nobody watches Seinfeld but me. But he says like, oh, I just know how to wake up, and then he misses a really important deadline. That's not important. But use a system that works for you. I think for me, I had to. You're talking about like the internal talk is so important. So for me, when the alarm clock goes off, one of the things I try to do so quick, it would be kick my feet over the side before I start the inner talk. Because we're all really good at going, oh man, I've had a rough week. Dude, you know what? I deserve this. Man, you know what?
5 extra minutes.
I feel so comfy right now. Honestly, I want to be a good husband and stay close. You know what? Honestly, Judah's not up, and I want to. We just go on and on. So I found if I can kick my feet up, and whatever inner talk I'm having of like, if there's a phrase, for me, I'm like, just get up and do it. I'm an extreme kind of person, but I think the inner talk is really important. Alarm clock system that works for you. And then the momentum really is taken and built by small steps of consistency. So I think if you can get up, right, if you can manage to get up out of your bed, I think it's really important to establish a morning routine that connects to what you did last night. So everything that I do when I start the night, I start before I sleep, all of those things I set out, which for me, when I'm in stride, I will not say that I have been in stride. When I'm in stride, something I did and will do is we'll like pour out a glass of water, preset the coffee maker, lay out my Bible and my journal on the chair. Like it's there, it's all done, so that the routines are waiting for me. So we talk about these like habits. There's the cue, there's the routine, and there's the reward. So for me, the alarm would go off. I would go out, drink a glass of water. First thing I do, what do I do after this? I push start on the coffee maker. Then I stretch for 5 minutes. And by the time that's done, the coffee's there. And then I'm like, I'm kind of awake. I'm ready for my mind to engage. And in a perfect world, the running shoes are all laid out. So I'm like, I got time. I can do this. It's all done before the world wakes up. And so I think it's helpful to whatever your routine is. It could be something as simple as like I sit in silence and solitude, which I try to not speak, is like maximize the undistracted and unneeded window. Like whether you're single, married, whatever it is, like we all have a very, 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 very short window of undistracted, unneeded time. Yeah. And I think that's why if you can beat the sun up, you can really start to conquer the day, because you're deciding what you do in that window of time. It's like, well, do I need to read and engage my mind? I'm going to do that. If I need to sit in silence and solitude, I'm going to do that. If I need to work out because I don't have time, because work is it's an all day work, I think it's really important to, kind of connect the routine to what we did last night, and that's those cues that are being triggered. And so then it leads you into consistency, which is key. Yeah, practicing small steps. Pastor Todd said this, I think at the beginning of this year, which we'd love for us to talk about this, that long-term consistency trumps short-term intensity. What are some ways that you guys have seen that true in your life, where you've taken small steps of consistency in an area that has produced long-term really positive results over like the really long, intense workout or decision,
Yeah, I don't think this is maybe the best example to answer your question, but it's something that has helped me. I find that I get really overwhelmed and really stressed out when my house is a mess. I'm a big environment person. I like feel better when my environment is nice and put together and looks good and is clean. It just makes me function better. And I would just let the house get messy, clothes everywhere, dishes piling up in the sink, all this stuff. And then I just get to a boiling point of being very overwhelmed. Yep. And I think about that statement that Pastor Todd shared. And then back a lot of months ago now, we recorded an episode with Pastor Lance Witt, which if you haven't heard it, I go back to it frequently because it's fantastic for this kind of stuff. But he talks about taking micro steps, and same concept, like small, consistent steps over time produce big results, and not just results for the sake of results, but
Mhm.
things that add value to your life. So one of the micro steps that I try to take daily is cleaning my house for 10, 15 minutes a day. Just every day, 10, 15 minutes. If there's dishes in the sink, if, my guest room tends to be I'll just toss it in there,
Yeah.
room in my house, and it's finally like livable, put together, organized. So every day just picking up the little things, and I find that I get to a point less of going, the house is a
Totally.
disaster, my life is a disaster, nothing is put together, because you just take small steps every day I'm going to fold my laundry.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the trash out and I'm going to wash the dishes. Little things each day. It's less
So
overwhelming
great.
and produces
Really
a longer, more mentally sound
Yeah.
environment.
A really practical one for me, which may not even seem like a big deal. When I'm getting ready in the morning, like deciding whatever I'm going to wear, if I grab something, because sometimes I change my mind. So if I'll grab something and I decide I don't want it, all of my closet is like color coordinated.
Wow.
And like it has to be color coordinated. Otherwise I lose all of my order. And so, and I'll still go through, like, I'm not perfect at this yet, but it's probably been the past like 3-ish months that I've been able to keep this, and before I tend to break the cycle, is if I grab something and I decide either I'm going to wear it or I'm not going to, if I've decided I'm going to wear it, it's easy. Like, I'll just put my hanger all the way to the right every time. Like, I don't put my hanger back in the gap. I put it all the way to the right, so that way I know where it is. But if I decided I'm not going to wear it, I don't just like leave it on my bed or leave it somewhere else. I put it right back where it needs to go, because if not, at that point, like at that point of the one, I'm like, oh, well, I did it with this one, I'll do it with the next one, and just becomes this cycle. And before I know
That
it,
is a significant choice to make.
and before I know it, my entire closet is like disorganized. And now what I have to do is I have to take out every single piece, redo it. Because I also have I don't know if you've seen on like TikTok, love TikTok, but the like hanger with multiple hangers on it, where you put it so like it trails down. I'll send you guys a photo later. I love like organization TikTok. Anyway, so that's a pretty big one for me, of like putting it back. And so it's like, I know exactly, like my short sleeve, if I need a red short sleeve shirt, it's right here, and I know exactly where to look. It's not all the way over here, because I've told this to my wife of like, hey, if you notice that like my closet is off, like it's starting, like I've pushed all of my clothes after laundry like all the way to the right, what it means is I'm overwhelmed in my life, because I can't get to this little thing because everything else is overwhelmed. So it's like a red flag to her and to me to know like this. And the other micro decision is, and this is going to seem so silly, but washing all of the dishes before I go to sleep that night.
Oh, that's huge.
Like, I'll
It's
wash
great for a
them.
healthy marriage too.
It really is, because it means in the morning I can put them away.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't always do it, but I try really hard to make sure like they are washed, and in the morning I can put them away.
Yeah, those are all such great examples of those small, consistent steps that build something of momentum. The last thing I say, I think if you're trying to be someone who wakes up a little bit earlier to build up momentum, is to pay attention to the mindsets that make or break. I think there are mindsets that we have that will either make this a successful experience, or at least an effective experience. Because I think like part of the journey to this is like, oh, I didn't do it the way I wanted to. It's more fluid. It's not like, there's grace for all of us,
Yeah.
And so, but the mindsets I do think are important, and Atomic Habits talks a lot about this. And as followers of Jesus, we talk about how important identity is. And so even breaking down the difference between saying like, oh man, I want to be someone who gets up early someday, versus, and people say this all the time, I'm not a morning person. There, you just made an identity statement that worked against a vision that you're trying to create. And so I think even stepping into like, I am a morning person, I am someone who gets up early, even making that statement helps you with your self-talk, right? And of course, like we want a self-talk that's in alignment with the Holy Spirit and all those things. But I think we got to pay attention to the things that we're thinking. Like, I have on my mirror in a marker, I am disciplined. And I read that every morning, whether I am being disciplined or I'm not. And a lot of times I'm brushing my teeth and I'm like, yes, Lord, I receive that. But I think like paying attention to the self-talk that we give ourselves, and And if we're aspiring to be something or do something, make it an identity statement.
Right.
I am a runner. Even towards faith, right? Our declarations. I am a son or daughter of I am the righteousness of Jesus.
Right.
We make these statements that are true, truth, even if we don't feel them. And so I think we have to do our work. Even something as practical as like, I'm going to get up early tomorrow because I am a morning person. If we get that our mindset, you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I'm gonna sleep in. You're like, no, I'm a morning person.
That's great.
Like, I'm a morning person.
Right.
So I think there's some helpful tips that we all can implement. These are some that have been helpful for me, starting with like start the day before you sleep and that mentality. If we can trigger and set ourselves up the night before. So my challenge, if I were to challenge anybody who's like, I want to wake, you typically sleep until 8 and you want to sleep until 7, or I would use, get rid of the word sleep in. I want to get up at 7.
Right.
I want to get up at 6. I want to get up at 5. Whatever it is view your evenings as the start of the day and ask yourself, what can you do today, right now, to set myself up for success tomorrow? Not tomorrow, when I wake up, that's going to help me. So what are those things? Coffee, water, devotions. And so that's my challenge, like do something that helps set yourself up for success when you wake up.
Yeah. And I think before we end this conversation, I would just want to emphasize, because this is something I'm learning right now, is the whole grace piece, like having grace for yourself and not, beating yourself up for not, hitting the mark every day. I think we were talking about this earlier. Like, I've been disciplined all my life. I've played sports all my life. Like I've had a reason to really be disciplined. And it's definitely been a challenge for me, like in independent adulthood and not having, like a looming soccer game or weightlifting meet over my head that I have to like work hard for. And something I'm learning and processing right now is to have grace for myself. Yep. And I think one obvious thing is like not everyone's day has to start at 5 a.m. Like if your work day starts at 12 p.m., don't wake up at 5. That is unreasonable. Like seasons change, different times for different seasons. If what your life looks like, this is all determined by. But just to have grace for yourself. Like if you are waking up in the morning, your alarm's going off and you're telling yourself you have to get out of bed, or else I'm not going to be able to be productive, or else I'm not going to, I'm going to be a bad wife because I'm not going to be able to have time to meal prep for my family, or, I'm like, not going to get that thing done. But your body's exhausted.
Right. Yeah.
Listen to your body. Yeah. Like your health is so much more important. Your worthiness is not determined by your productivity or what you can produce in this world. Like your worthiness is determined because of who you are as a child of God. And you don't have to, when you snooze your alarm and then wake up, I'm talking to myself here. Yeah. You wake up at 8 a.m. and you go, another day, like I missed it. You don't need to beat yourself up.
Yep.
That is not what this is about. This is about, developing discipline to add value, not to beat yourself up when you don't meet the mark that you're setting for yourself.
Yep.
So
if I could add on to that, because that was really good. There's this quote from this book, Ego is the Enemy. It's not a Christian book, but it does talk about really overcoming self-pride. And it was talking about aspirations. And I think these are really helpful as it relates to trying to get up earlier, to be humble in our aspirations, gracious in our success, and resilient in our failures. And not take things too hard, but to be resilient. And also, if we're trying to maximize our lives for Jesus, right, that's the aim of like, man, I want to get up because I want to give him the best version of me and other people. And so I think that's a really, really great thought, Casey.
Yeah. I think this has been a great conversation. I love that we're in it together. Like, I love that we have this community of young adults. We're all learning this. We're all figuring it out. It looks different for all of us. So I'm glad we've got to had some of these conversations where we're getting better at things together. And we'd love for you to check out the show notes. We're going to have a 1-pager in there for you to help you learn how to wake up earlier with some of the resources we've talked about today. But other than that, we'll see you back next week for another episode of Young and Adulting.
Don't snooze on us.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Young and Adulting. Follow us on Instagram at cf.youngadults. And if there's a topic you'd like to talk about, we want to hear about it. Send us an email or leave a comment with your thoughts. We'll see you next time.